Donald Trump and Mike Pence are giving speeches here in Washington today as the partners turned rivals offer competing paths for the Republican Party. It is the former president's first time back in Washington since he left the White House 17 months ago. His speech is this afternoon. The former vice president spoke to young conservatives this morning. Listen, it is not hard to figure out who he's talking about here.
In order to win, conservatives need to do more than criticize and complain. We must unite our movement behind a bold, optimistic agenda that offers a clear and compelling choice to the American people. Now, some people may choose to focus on the past, but elections are about the future. And I believe conservatives must focus on the future to win back America.
CNN's Kristen Holmes is at the Trump speech venue, the America First Agenda Summit here in Washington. Kristen, set the stage.
Well, John, first of all, just taking one step back here, this is really extraordinary when you think about it. These two men served side by side at the White House, just miles from where we are here. Today, they're giving their view of the future of the Republican Party, and this really is a fight over the future of the Republican Party. Now, Trump, we'll hear from him momentarily. He is meant to give a policy speech about law and order. This is what his allies hope he actually sticks to. Remember, Republicans believe that rising crime rates are going to be a driving factor in the November midterms. They want him to stick to this, to lay out those policies, take this opportunity to, one, have a Republican agenda ahead of the midterms, and two, to really lay the groundwork in a real way for a presidential bid in 2024, instead of just these long rallies in which he gives his grievances about 2020. It remains to be seen whether or not Trump can actually focus on the future. You heard that from Mike Pence there. It seems like a pretty thinly veiled reference to the fact that every speech that Trump gives ends up being about 2020 election. He is hung up on the grievances, on the people that he believes betrayed him, and on these conspiracy theories around the election. So today is really a test to see whether or not he can stay on message. Now, here at the America First Policy Summit, you're going to hear from some of conservative leaders from across the spectrum. We have Ted Cruz, Kevin McCarthy, Lindsey Graham, Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, all of them likely to be focused on that future of the Republican Party. But again, it remains to be seen whether or not President Trump can actually move forward as he mulls a presidential run.
Kristen Holmes on the scene of the big speech. Glad to have you in the program. We'll see what Trump says when he gets there. Let's bring the conversation back into the room. Is it irony, help me with the right word, that Donald Trump's first trip back to Washington is to give a speech on law and order when we know now more than ever that a federal grand jury is inside the West Wing investigating his efforts to steal the country, to steal an election?
It's just part of the script that none of us probably could have written without it being like tossed back for not being realistic enough. But look, I mean, the president has obviously been giving a ton of speeches. The former president, he was out in Arizona over the weekend giving another speech on Saturday. So he is well practiced at this. One thing he has not done is given a policy speech yet. That's what his aides are teeing up for this afternoon. We'll see if that happens. He literally is going to be blocks from the federal courthouse where the grand jury is deciding what happened on the 6th. If he was complicit in this, blocks from the Department of Justice where the Attorney General right now is deciding sort of how to proceed with this. The Attorney General, of course, is also giving a speech, or an interview, I should say, this afternoon to NBC. We'll see what he says. So a very interesting moment for the former president to return to Washington. I think the most interesting thing is just, obviously, as Kristen was saying, the former vice president, who is as loyal as the day is long, now obviously trying to chart his own path. I don't get a ton of sense of what the market is for that among Republicans. But look, Donald Trump would be happy to have Mike Pence in the race, as well as many, many, many other Republicans, because the key to Trump's future is a big Republican field. That's his way to victory again. And it's teeing up that way. The ambitious list that Kristen was reading off of speakers, that helps Donald Trump.
And so you're trying to Jeff's point, if you're Mike Pence, you're trying to figure out, is there a path for me? When he says we need to do more than just criticize and complain, it's pretty clear who he's talking about there. Donald Trump is just a living grievance. He airs his grievances every day. But we have to focus on the future, not the past. Isn't it easy to say that, again, whatever you thought of Mike Pence before he was vice president, he was part of the Trump administration. If Republicans want something new, is it him?
Look, I mean, it has come out in the hearings as well that, yes, he did refuse to go along with this plan to stop the certification of the electoral count as well. But as you were saying, this was one of the more loyal people to the former president during the administration. I thought just as telling as any comment he made during his remarks today, that being the former vice president, was also his first answer in the Q&A when somebody asked about kind of the distinction and the growing divide between him and the former president. And he actually, you can go look at the exact quote, but kind of played down that there was a big difference between them as well. So still trying to play it a little bit both ways here as well. But you're right, if there's any kind of distinction between their rhetoric, that being Pence and Trump, you still have the former president focused on promoting these false claims about the election, the 2020 election, whereas Vice President, by saying let's move forward from that, that is both criticism of the former president, but also trying to now focus on some of the actual issues that are causing issues for the Biden administration.
And there are a lot of Republicans who wish Donald Trump would just go away until after the November elections because they just think that they have a political climate that works in their favor and they don't want him messing with it. To Kristen's point and to your point, can Donald Trump give a policy speech? Well, on Friday, he was in Arizona, ostensibly campaigning for his choice in the governor's race there, but much of the speech was not about her, but about him.
If I renounced my beliefs, and if I agreed to stay silent, and if I stayed home and took it easy, if I announced that I was not going to run any longer for political office, the persecution of Donald Trump would immediately stop. But that's not what I do. I can't do that. Because I love this country and I love you.
In his mind, or at least in his public presentation, he is always the victim. But that is the part that whether it's the Senate race or the governor's race in Georgia, whether it's anywhere else, a lot of Republicans wish, please, not now.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for Republicans, and we saw that with former Vice President Pence today, they want the good parts of Donald Trump. So they are loath to quit him completely, even if they believe some of the things he does now is unhelpful. So Pence likes the fact that Trump remains popular with the base. He likes the fact that conservatives think that a lot of things that President Trump stood for during his terms in time in office was beneficial. The Supreme Court justices he appointed, the tax cuts, things like that. So he doesn't want to really quit himself from Donald Trump. He wants to quit himself just from those problematic parts, particularly when it comes to the 2020 election. And I don't know if you can do that, you know, because it's still the same guy all wrapped into one.
It's a fascinating question. I don't know the answers. Please chime in if you think you do. How much does Trump still have, right? How much has the January 6th committee hearings? How much of the investigations? How much is just since the American people often just want to move on? Even if they like somebody in the rearview mirror, it's let's have change in the next election. Where are we there? Because the fascinating thing about Trump and his people is they say the quiet thing out loud. This is Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon's likely to go to jail soon. He was just convicted of contempt of Congress. He says we're going to get Trump back, and this is going to happen.
Put away the cutesy little phrase, drain the swamp. Put away the cutesy little phrase, swamp creatures. This is not marginally cutting out a program or two. This is not about that. This is about going to the heart of it, the heart of the beast. This is Babylon on the Potomac. That's what we have here, the imperial city. And this is, by the way, we finally have a plan, ladies and gentlemen. We're at war. We're at war with the administrative state.
Look, I mean, this is the preview of the second act, I guess, of the Trump presidency, Trump show. It is a long time between now and when that act would start. But if the former president actually is going to follow that roadmap, which is exactly what Steve Bannon was trying to do, trying to get him to look to a focus on really, you know, hollowing out the federal government, continuing what he was doing, we will see this afternoon. We will see in Mr. Trump's speech, which is around 3 o'clock Eastern or so, if he is going to turn the page and start a second act by talking about policy, or if it's going to be about grievance from the past. We'll get a sense this afternoon. I have my bets, but we'll see.